Welcome back to the Retro Chat podcast. Andy here, and joining me this time is my longtime buddy, my longtime friend. He is the retro master. He is the retro aficionado. He is, if you talk about the collector from the MCU, that is this man. He is the master of collecting, the master of retromania. It's Chris Vint from Vinto's Vault. How you doing, my friend?
I was going to do a Geordie accent there, but I thought, well, I know I'll not do that. But thank you for that lovely introduction there. It seems to get better with each time I come on, so I'm really excited to see if I get invited back, what it's like next time. And I do
Well,
have a few collector pieces here to show you, especially a couple of things here. So if you're watching on the YouTube feed, you'll see these. If you're listening on the audio stream, then go to Retro Chat Podcast UK, is it?
hey,
There we
look at
go.
you.
You did me a favor, I did you one back, to get that out there.
After 4 appearances, you finally got my socials right. There you go.
Yeah.
The thing is, you said the intros are getting better. By the time you next come on, the entire show will be purely an intro to Chris Vint, and then
That's
2
fine.
minutes at the end of it
I'll
will be
just
the
get a
choice of time.
cardboard cutout, set it here, and just listen in the background and see what it's like.
It'll be like an interview with Diamond Dallas Page. You just set it, walk away, come back
Yeah.
3 hours later, and it's still going.
Just after doing
Brilliant.
yoga. Just going,
Now, if you would like to get in contact with us right here at the Retro Chat podcast, you can do, and you can do that by listening to us on the audio feed because all the contact details are on there. You can do that by going to Spotify, Google, Apple, Amazon, or the website and searching for Retro Chat podcast. If you want to join us on social media, you can, of course, do that on the YouTube channel, as Chris has quite rightly said and eloquently put, Retro Chat Podcast UK. You can go to Facebook and Instagram at Retro Chat Podcast. You can tweet us directly at Retro Chat Pod. So that is all of your social media links. And of course, you can join Chris on his Twitter handle, which is underneath his name over there. That's it. It would have been easier if Chris had done it. You can join Chris at Vinto's Vault, and you can join me, my name, at Retro Chat Pod. That's it. That's our socials. That's our subscription. Chris, what are we here to talk about?
We're here to talk about a classic TV show in which, obviously, if you watched Porridge, it was done by the guys who did that, Dick Clemens and Ian Fernie, or Weidersehen Pet, which I know has a special place in my heart, a special place in your heart, because we probably introduced this by our fathers, and it still to this day remains one of my top TV shows of all time, which I think is an idea to do at some stage, is like your top 5 things that we can watch from way back then and still watch today. But yeah, it's just one of those epic shows where you would sometimes think that it wasn't written. It's so superbly acted, in my opinion.
I think I agree with you completely on that, because I think that with Auf Wiedersehen Pet, it was actually ahead of its time. Set in the 80s, set during the unemployment, the mass redundancies that we had back in the early to mid 80s. What you were finding was the layoffs were there. It was really relevant in terms of the socioeconomic climate that we had over here in the UK, and I'm sure in Ireland at the time. But it was just something about seeing some Geordie lads getting together, not really caring, going to Germany, and the adventures that they had was just really warms the cockles, and it still does. I mean, you said that it's one of the top 5 shows that you've watched, and you were introduced it to you by your dad. I'm exactly the same. I remember sitting down with my father, and he used to say to me, "Son, watch this." And I was obviously a lot older than at that point. I wasn't watching it when I was a nipper. And he didn't tell me nothing about it. And I just sat and we put the DVD on and we watched it. And I belly laughed throughout the entire thing. When you saw the character of Oz played by Jimmy Nail, the leader in Dennis played by Tim Healy, the snively, really kind of cowardly Neville played by a very young but extremely talented Kevin Whately. And then throw into that, Bomber played by legendary Pat Roach, Wayne played by the late great Gary Holton, and Timothy Spall as well, and Christopher Fairbank who played Moxley. Played Moxley. Yeah, I mean, it was just Barry was Timothy Spall, wasn't it? The Brummie.
Yeah.
And Moxley was Christopher Fairbank. It was just a stellar cast when you look at what they've done since. They are the pinnacle of British acting and British drama and entertainment.
And plus the fact that you had a very, very young Ray Winston appearing in one of the episodes, and uh, a very clean shaven and very youthful looking Michael Elflick, who would go on to play Boone many, many years later. I also do have I love this box set, which is shaped like a lunchbox.
I
I
had
love how
that.
they did that. Yeah,
Yeah.
so I had to get that whenever it first came out.
Yeah,
But
I
yeah,
had
like you
that.
said, like because Jimmy Neal almost didn't play Oz. He was there at the auditions for it, and he was looking at the clock, and he was called late, and he said, "If I leave now, I could go and get a few pints in and go home and say that I didn't get the job or whatever." But as soon as he got up, the person came out and said Mr. Neil, and he said, "Well, it's not Neil actually." Or I think he was called Mr. Neil, and he went, "It's not Neil actually, it's Neil." He said, "It's not even a Neil, it's this." But he went in, and they just saw him and said, let him just be able to act just a bit, just a bit. But because obviously his accent compared to the other two is so thick, and it is so Geordie compared to Dennis and Neville, who at the time, like were a bit more polished in the acting skills, shall we say. Whereas Moxie, Christopher Fairbank, he was going to play it as an Irishman instead. And then they asked if he could do it Liverpool because he was Liverpool, Barry was Birmingham, which
Brummy.
Timothy Spall says he hates now because he just gets people going, like he's all right, Barry, to offer a bit, mate, and then you had the three Geordies, you had Barry or Bomber from Bristol,
Yeah.
and then Wayne, the Cockney from London. So you had all them. So it was very polarizing. If you were to put this on in America, I don't think they would have a clue what would be going on.
I don't think they'd understand the Geordies, let alone anything else. When you
No.
mix that in with, well, all right, Barry, all right, all right, how do you do it? All right. You just, I'm sorry to insult any Brummy viewers or listeners, but I am from the Midlands, so I can get away from it. I can get away with it. But you see, the way it was just when you look at the actors who played those characters, like you said, it was just the right combination, wasn't it? Because sometimes you get an ensemble piece that gels or doesn't gel.
Yeah.
And some of it, you can say a lot of it will come down to the writing by Clement and Lefrene. But to take those words and put it on screen and make them come alive and make them come real comes down to how they interact with each other. And from that opening scene at the beginning of episode 1, you just knew you were in for a ride with Oz, Dennis, and Neville in the car. The car breaks down, the old Ford Cortina on the boat. Neville writing those postcards, which was
dearest Brenda.
Dearest, something that was all the way through season 1. You knew you were in for a ride. And it was one of those exciting rides. You didn't know where it was going to go, but you loved every minute of it. For 45 minutes to an hour, you were hooked totally watching it on ITV.
Oh, very much so. And I think there's I'll show you here. There's a documentary which was called Back with the Boys, which is to do with their Weidersehen Pet 30th anniversary reunion, where they have all the actors, apart from Noel Clarke, which we'll get onto in a minute or two, talk about their time, on our Weidersehen Pet, how it came about, etc. And they actually said that the people who would run, like, say, the bars or whatever, would say that they would have to close, they would have no business whenever our Wiedersehen Pet was on, because people would actually leave the bar at that time to go home to watch our Wiedersehen Pet. That's how popular that was. Even though ITV didn't really give it a chance at first, they put it on at a no time slot and just went, here you go, and just didn't really think of anything of it, and then it just kicked off, and then obviously we got the first season, and then how it ends, which we'll get onto in a minute or two, to then go on to the second season, which was completely different from the first season, which was good. But they all seem to be based on real experiences, because I think Frank Rodham, who was the creator of the show, he knew people who were going over to Germany to do this, and that's what it was based on, very much like on, I think it was season 3, was based on stuff to do with that. Obviously not the whole thing, but it was loosely based on people's experiences and stuff like that as well.
Well, let's give you an idea of how popular it was, because in the year 2000, Series 1 that we talked about was set in Germany, was ranked number 46 on the 100 greatest British television programs compiled by the British Film Institute, the BFI. In 2015, the 80 series was voted ITV's favourite TV programme of all time in a Radio Times Readers' Poll to celebrate the 60th anniversary of ITV. And the show was also the subject of the first episode of a documentary series on BBC called Drama Connections back in 2005. And it's had 4 seasons, which is actually quite unprecedented because there was a 16-year gap between the end of season 2 and the beginning of season 3. And it also changed networks and went from ITV to BBC One. So series 1 premiered 83 to 84. You then had a 2-year gap. And series 2 premiered in 86. Series 3 was 2002, and season 4 was 2004. And I'm sure we'll talk more about season 3 and season 4 in a second. But I think out of the legacy of Auf Wiedersehen Pet, those last 2 seasons is, to me, where it kind of lost its way a little bit. I think season 3 and season 4 didn't match up to season 1 and 2.
I would say season 3 did. But then you had season 4, which set in Cuba, and then you had the Christmas special, which was only 2 episodes. By that time, sadly, we didn't have Gary Holton, they had to shoot some scenes in series 2 without him. And then Pat Roach, who played Bomber, he passed away, and he wasn't there in season 5. So he wasn't there for that. But season 5 was the part where Barry kind of gets kidnapped, and it's just, that was whenever I was like, right, please stop now, because it's becoming like the Undertaker here, where we started off great and it's starting to become a real parody of itself. I really enjoyed season 3, and we'll get onto that in a couple of minutes. Season 4 I enjoyed, but the whole Neville as a spy, being a Man United fan, was kind of that was the bit that kind of jarred at me a bit. You could see the real decline, sadly, in Pat Roach, from him being a bit beefier in season 3 to being a lot slimmer in season 4. But then I think he made the table read for the last one, but he couldn't make it for that. And there's actually a part wherever they toast him, like, and then I think at the end it says dedicated to Pat Roach.
I think he actually passed away before they started filming, so hence he did the table read. You were right, and then they were due to start filming, and they got word that he had passed, and that was a shame. I think the 2 parts to wrap it up, the au revoir, as they called it, I think was a lovely way to finish it. It didn't need to have a series; it needed a 2-part finale. And there's one line which we'll just touch on now, which I thought just brought everything back together again. Was they were on the boat, they were heading back to Germany, and Neville's asked, what did Brenda think about him going back to Germany? Of which she replied, Auf Wiedersehen, Pet.
Yeah.
And then Breaking Away started up, and that's how it finished.
Yeah, because obviously we hadn't had that in season 3 or 4, because season 3 was Why I'm Man, done by Mark Knopfler, who is briefly touched on as one of Oz's idols, like Bobby Robson.
So let's talk about season 1, the origin. They're in Germany. It's very rough. Yeah, they're in what they consider to be a World War II prisoner of war camp, which is often referenced. They're in a hut. How you think about dramas and comedy dramas now, the fact it's set primarily on one location it's unheard of now. And they spent a lot of time in that hut or on the building site. It was only very rarely did they go off site and go to the bar or a couple other scenes that they
swimming pool.
Yeah, but the majority of it, they were in the hut, and that was it.
Yeah. In the documentary thing, they all talk about the hut and said that was like its own, like an extra actor, because you had in that hut, you had them, but then you had the film crew, and you had this, and you had that, you had the sound, So obviously, whenever they come tramping in their big boots, you have like the banging of that, which I'm sure was a logistical nightmare for the people who did the sound. But they said like it would be really cold in there. So like whenever you're shooting in the winter months and it's freezing and you're doing that, I'm sure that's not a nice experience. And then obviously in season 3 they end up in like a kind of like a something similar to that, and with them staying there, being kicked out of the hotel. But it's like its own character, because as soon as, like you mentioned, with our Wiedersehen Pet, you automatically think of the hut, and that's where the majority of things happen, from Bomber's daughter coming over, and then always thinking that Wayne's having this wicked way and throwing them down and stuff and all this here. But whenever Moxie comes in and they only let him in because he's got a dartboard, and his opening line is "There's no dots, I'm afraid," and having any darts though or something like that. And it's just it's such it's something done so simply, but yet it's executed so beautifully. You see them all sitting around and they're having meeting about who's going to be the leader, and it's like Barry saying to Dennis, "You should be our leader," to which Dennis says Barry, and then tells him to go away, not so nicely, But it's just one of those things that I think season 1 just stems a lot in people's mind as the best series. And for me, obviously, it's where it started, where you get introduced to the characters and stuff. But it's my favorite is actually the second season, the start of it, whenever they're all getting the band back together, and that's where the Back with the Boys Again by Joe Fagan comes into play at the end of season 2. But you can't fail but laugh at all the stuff that happens to it, from Oz wanting to be to fall in love with somebody, and then he's already married and stuff, and last in England, that doesn't matter, and you're like, okay, whatever. And then obviously Dennis's relationship with Dagmar, and Neville getting the tattoo in his arm, and who's Lottie, and it's like, no idea. And it's just like, and I love the fact that they brought that back for the third season, whenever Moxie says, like, what did Brenda think of the tattoo? And we decided not to mention it, and then she was okay about it eventually.
It was just classic, wasn't it? And then you talked about season 2, and that was a change in pace, wasn't it? Because they were no longer in Germany. They were now back in the UK. They were back at a country house. They were doing it up, and it was. I think what was interesting here was seeing they were in Spain to start with in the first half of the season.
No, other way around.
Other way around. They were at the country house at the beginning in Spain.
Then Spain. Yeah, because it's Ali Fraser, played by Bill Patterson, who we then see in Doctor Who: Victory of the Daleks with Matt Smith's third story. Who just plays a great villain, and we see that the change in Dennis. Dennis is the character who starts off with so much, and then just each season goes down, very much like Barry. Barry's worse than Dennis, which says a lot. He starts off poor, and then ends up well, and then ends up poor again. But yeah, so we see him kind of being Ali Fraser's gopher, as he says, go for the clubs, go for the wife, or whatever, because he owes him money, got into debt after he left Dagmar in series 1, went back to his wife, that didn't work out, so he ends up living with his sister.
Yeah,
and that's fun.
And what's intriguing is you turn around and you just said there that Dennis went down every season, but the intriguing thing was Oz went up every season.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah.
Which you wouldn't quite imagine. So, season 2 kicks off doing the country house, and that's really intriguing to see how they interact with the Brits. They're obviously all Brits. There's that one scene in the pub where the pub's the local, and you've got the really grumpy landlord, and they're in there, and they get it's just amazing, isn't it?
That's where my first memory comes into play, is whenever Wayne gets my Bluetooth headphone keeps falling out. I apologize. He rents buys a TV and video, and they find video, and it's like of a sex party, and he's at it, And whenever he goes in and goes, Mr. Arthur Tiger Pringle, this is your life. That's my first memory of watching Auf Wiedersehen Pet, was actually watching that and
Oh
seeing that
wow.
happen whenever it was actually on TV. So whenever they're all standing in the background going, dun, 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 every time I see that, that just takes me back to watching it and lying on the floor in the house watching it.
Oh bless. So then you must have. So you watched that, and then you went back and watched season 1 with your dad, or did you watch
I
all of?
think I would imagine so. Yeah, I think season one they watched, because season one was what, 82, 83. It would have been 5. So this would have been about 7, 8. So I was probably just messing around and then just paying no attention to it, and then maybe just falling in love with the characters. And then, like you said earlier, probably wasn't until the DVDs came out that I really sank my teeth into it.
So
Just went through everything.
so talk to us about how you started watching it. You said you watched it in season 2 and you watched it with your dad, but what was it that
Yeah.
made your dad go, "Come on, let's watch this every week"? How did that come around?
I think because we used to watch things as a family, like I find a diary from 1991 where it'd be like, watch Darnie Buds of May, watch this, like even though I have my own TV, I would still watch stuff like that with the folks. And I think it was maybe on around 9 o'clock, maybe on a Friday night, so I didn't have school the next day, so you'd like to stay up a bit later, and that's probably where it came to. But I remember whenever the DVDs came out, because I can't I have a funny feeling he had them on videos. He did have them on videos because I remember the videos were like WrestleMania 3. They were in a
Yeah.
double thing, and I remember, God, it's weird that things that just click back into memory, because he used to have a wardrobe up the top where he had all his videos, and I remember it must have been whenever I was older and I was going through videos of what to watch, and what's this? Because I remember watching that, and then must have watched some of it, and then I thought, oh, I'll watch this again, and then just stuck that on and watched that. So it would have been from VHS, and then whenever the DVDs came out, obviously VHS were a thing of the past. So got the DVDs up in my local Tesco. I think they were maybe, I want to say 30, 35 quid each, and they came out 1 month after the other. And then I just thought, right, I'll get them. And then as soon as the other ones came out, which I have, season 3, season 4, and the special as well.
Yeah.
Because I always prefer, obviously, you could stream stuff, but you never know whenever your internet's going to go down. And sometimes it's nice just to put on a DVD or whatever and just watch through them. So, yeah, it's something that my mom still will watch. Like sometimes she'll have the notion to go through with this, and that's the thing, is that you can really, obviously, with things being different now, even with the likes of, like you said, with yesterday, Aaron, it said it has like a warning with some out of date opinions and language. So obviously there's a thing in season 3 to do with Oz and the sun, and there's a line which I remember the Sun said was one of the best lines ever in TV history. And obviously, if they were put that now, they would get a lot of flack to do with that. And obviously, in season 1, wherever Oz is with the woman that he wants to marry, the Turkish
Yeah.
people say to him about, like, how did you tell him, how did you get him to stop? And that's revealed, and the way it's worded by Dennis, you couldn't get away with now.
Yeah. It wasn't PC, was it? But it was a different
No,
time. It was
but
a different era.
yeah,
It was
and that's the thing.
it's I am the same as you, and I'm not, because I used to have the DVDs as well. I used to be like you. I used to have all the DVDs of, like, He-Man and Masters and everything else. And then when I moved in with my wife, it was, they've got to go. So I had to get rid of the lot.
Oh dear.
I didn't have enough room. We didn't have enough room in the house. So we had to get rid of the lot, and it was gutting, because it was just and now it's, you kind of want to just get the DVD and pick it down off the shelf and put it in and watch it, and you don't. But hey, streaming services are there for a reason. Okay, I think it's such a touching story as well when you talk about that, and I think the one thing about doing this show, and I don't know if you agree, but we've done a lot of shows now together. It's the fact that it can bring up those old memories that you don't really think, doesn't it? And when we started talking about doing Pet, like I said to you at the beginning, I remembered watching it with Dad and all this type of thing, and I actually remember going and getting the box sets after Dad passed, and I sat there one evening on my own when I had my own place, and I went through the entire first 2 seasons. Just watched it back to back. Yeah, I did the
Mhm.
whole 2 things, and yeah, I shed a tear because it could remind me of, it wasn't too long after Dad had died that it happened. But then you kind of sat there and went, it's not a negative thing, it's all the good thing. And now I watch it and look
Yeah,
at it and go, I can just remember like sat in
yeah,
the armchair, sat on the sofa with my father, watching Auf Wiedersehen Pet, having a beer, as we got older, you know, just kind of,
not whenever you're 5.
yeah, not when you were
Son.
5. See, different era, different time.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh yeah. Mhm.
but I think one of the things that really resonate with me is we talked about situational comedy is the fact it was the writers, Frennis and, you know, um, I can't
Yeah.
remember their names.
The Clemency and the Franny.
That's it. The writers are known for things like Porridge, which is a
Yeah.
situational comedy. You can't get more situational than being in a prison
No.
and being in one set. And you bought into the characters of Fletch and
Yeah.
Grobber. You bought into them. They had a skill of being able to write a character that was more than one dimensional. It's a 3-dimensional, fully rounded character that tugged at the heartstrings, got you emotionally involved, got you believing in what they were going through, and actually wanted you to be there and know these guys. And
Yeah.
that's a skill that you don't see right now.
No, definitely not. I mean, the closest thing I think you'll come to that will be Only Fools and Horses. With Del Boy, with John Sullivan doing a bang up job as that. But yeah, it's just one of those things that like we're saying about not being PG. There's a scene in season 2 wherever Oz is driving, but he's drinking a beer while driving, and it's like, well, you can't do that these days. Not that you should do it at any stage, but it's just a case of it wasn't as frowned upon back there as it is now. But yeah, there's just a lot of things whenever you look back at it, um, and still make you laugh. But because we're of that era where we were brought up in the 80s, like we've watched things like Faulty Towers, wherever he'll say, "Don't mention the war" and things like that. And with this, whenever they go to Spain and they're just making fun of the if they call the Germans
Yeah,
Erics, because then if they say, like, oh, the Eric down there, they think that they're talking
yeah.
about somebody called Eric, so that's the way they do it. But it's just to see sometimes the polarizing opinions of the Brits and then like the Spaniards or whatever. Like whenever they get to Spain and they end up in the house that they think's Ali's house and somebody else's, and they're all in the swimming pool and they're all as naked as they were whenever they were first born and things like that. And it's just funny to watch, like them just get themselves in such a mess of stupid things like that. And like
Well,
whenever they go to America in season 3 and Caddy ends up putting the drugs in and they think that they're drug trafficking and things like that. It's like, dear.
when was the last time you watched it? When was the last time you said, I want to watch an Auf Wiedersehen Pet and put a DVD in?
Oh, well, I watched the documentary thing a couple of weeks ago and kind of just in preparation for this, but I probably would have said that I would have watched season 3 and 4 maybe about a month and a half, 2 months ago. I haven't watched, and because they're shorter, they're only 6
Yeah,
episodes, whereas the other one's like 13 episodes. Sometimes I feel that season 3 and 4 are just easier to watch because there's less, whereas you can get season 3 and 4 done by the time you do season 1. I
yeah.
probably will watch them again after doing this and whatever, because that seems to be where we end up talking about something. I'll go like, I'm really in the mood to watch that now, or if we're talking about, somebody's talking about a video game, like obviously with Halloween coming up, I really want to play the Resident Evil games again and things like that. So yeah, so there's just so much stuff that to do with. And while we're talking about our Wiedersehen Pet, just to sidetrack that, my dad actually met Tim Healy.
Really?
He there's This will be a bit of a long story, so apologies, folks, if it bores you.
Go for
But
it.
Andy's got his hand on his chin, so he's invested. So I've got him hooked at least. So yeah, he used to work in a hotel some time ago, and he basically, there was a show over here called the Kelly Show, which was like a interview show with Jerry Kelly, and he would have, think of the Northern Irish version of Graham Norton, but nowhere near as good. So the guests would stay at this hotel, which is like a 5-star hotel, and he met Tim Healy, and he was saying to him about will there ever be a third season? Now, this was after season 2 had wrapped, and obviously Gary Holton had passed away. And he said, "Oh, I don't think so, because obviously we don't have Gary Holton anymore, etc." So he then asked him if he could sign this for me, which
Oh,
is
wow.
an autograph which is personalised to me. It says, "To Christopher, best wishes, Tim Healy." Now, I don't know if he wrote these people or what, so I have one signed by Kevin Waitley, which says, "Christopher, cheers, Pet, Kevin Waitley." I then just have one here from Timothy Spall, which says, "Best wishes, Timothy Spall." I have one here from Pat Roach, which you can't
Oh,
really see, but
wow.
says, "To Christopher, best wishes, Pat Roach." And my favourite one, which is Christopher Fairbank, which says, "To Christopher, good luck, best wishes, Christopher Fairbank." He obviously went on to appear in the first Batman movie. He says, "Who are you?" to Batman, and obviously in Guardians of the Galaxy as well. So these are just some things that I keep in this, which is something that was my dad's that I took, which is just a story to do with from season 1 to season 3 of Auf Wiedersehen Pet. And I keep these all in here because
Oh,
I
wow.
thought I'd lost them at one stage and was really, really upset about it. And it turned out they were in this book. So that's where I keep them from now on. So that's just a story to do with my dad meeting him and just talking to him about that as well. And then, so I just really need to get Jimmy Neal's, and I can't get Gary Holton's anymore, and get Noel Clark's to complete the Magnificent Seven, as it were.
I don't think you'll be getting Noel Clark's anytime soon, but what?
I don't think so either. No, I don't think so. I'd rather go and get Bill Patterson's, because I loved his portrayal as Ali Fraser.
Oh,
Speaking
it's
of
amazing.
which, a little random fact for you. In season 3, you know the guy Mickey Startup, the guy that Moxie robs? Did you know that he did the intro from 1984 to around 2004 of Thomas the Tank Engine?
No.
Yeah, because I was looking through IMDb. I couldn't think of Bill Patterson's name for love nor money. I don't know why. And I looked at that and said Mickey Startup, and I went, "What's that?" And I was like, "Oh, that's who that is." And it just came up, all Thomas the Tank Engine. And I went, "Really?" So the guy who says in season 3, we're like, if you're what is it? "If you're messing with me, I'll wear your backside as a
Yeah,
hat,"
yeah.
to which all says, "It'd suit you," um, which is a great line. He did the intro, the narration of Thomas the Tank Engine, which just blew my mind.
That's. I don't even know where to go with that.
No, no,
I think for me,
but
for me, mate, I think that story that you just said about the photos is such a marvelous memory to have. And
yeah,
oh, mate, that actually genuinely, not trying to talk shit or anything like that, but genuinely that brought a tear to my eye a little bit. I
swear,
know, I'll beep it out. That genuinely did bring a tear to my eye, because it's things like that it's just, that's why that's such a memory to have, isn't it? And you think
yeah,
a show can do that, and
yeah.
that's why that show has that resonance. Oh,
Yeah, that's just the thing with like meeting people at conventions and stuff. You can tell them how much it means to you or things like that. Like I know that some people, obviously TV is a great way of escapism, like it was for you. Like whenever your father sadly passed away, you kind of escaped into watching something that brought the two of you together. And that's the good thing about that, is that it just triggered that memory to do with the videos that I hadn't thought about for I don't know how long. And it's just weird how talking about something like that, that's why it's good to talk about things,
it's
because
good to
it'll
talk.
just, exactly, Bob Hoskins at its finest, not Super Mario. Um, but yeah, but it's just a case of, and that's why doing the show, like we're talking about our memories, but then hopefully people listening will then think about their memories with
Yeah,
said show, like, and you've had
yeah.
people on, like Lee and whatever, and they're talking about, like their experiences with certain things as well. And it's great to listen to even people like Larry Kenny who you've interviewed, like, and they're talking about being at the forefront of it and their memories, of it. And not to sidetrack, but I remember whenever we interviewed on Operation Retro Shock, Lincoln Bow, not really. Whenever we interviewed Townsend Coleman, and we'd said something to Townsend like, you helped our childhood, you made our childhood great, and there was a real silence To which she was like, "Thank you, that means a lot to me." And like, and things like that. Whenever you're talking to a celebrity and you're voicing how important their work is to you, and it makes them tear up a little bit.
Mm,
It's something that you never really expect
mm.
as fans to get to do. So
I think I was like that when I met someone at Destination Star Trek. It was exactly the same. And, you know, in November, Marina Sirtis is going to be at Destination, and I'm hoping to go because, Marina Sirtis, who played Councillor Troy on Next Gen, she was something that you talk about my father. My father had a massive, celebrity crush on her. We used to watch Star Trek on a Wednesday night at BBC Two at 6 o'clock, and he would sit there and go, "Oh, look at Deanna, look at
and
Deanna."
sometimes whenever your dad says that, you're like, "All right, Dad, calm down." But
Yeah,
you're thinking in your head, you're thinking he's not far wrong, but you need to calm down.
I'm sat there going, I need to cover my ears, but at the same point going,
Yeah.
oh yeah, I totally
Yeah.
agree. Now obviously I won't be saying the story quite like that to Marina, but the ability to see her and actually talk to her is exactly the same. And I met Anson Mount and a few others 2 years ago at the last DST, and was talking to them and sharing some stories with them. And it's really impressive to see them genuinely react to what you're saying. It makes it as though they are people, which is one thing. Now, before we begin to wrap this up, there is one thing that I do want to touch on, and I'm going to make you big screen because it's to your left as I'm looking at you, and it's the music of Auf Wiedersehen Pet. So obviously you've got the vinyl, the CD of the best of, and I'm assuming season 1.
Yeah, that there's season 1. Yeah.
What is it about the music of Auf Wiedersehen Pet? Because the Joe Fagin songs, The Boys Are Back, Breaking Away, they were just songs that are not just resonant towards Auf Wiedersehen Pet. They're songs you can listen to now, but it really set the scene.
Yeah, it came to something like whenever I started collecting vinyls, one of the ones that I went for was some of the early, now that's what I call music, and then I think it was on number 2 or 3. That's Living All Right is on one of them because it charted so well. But that was the thing, is in the 80s, you had so many iconic theme tunes, like on my Instagram, Vintage Vault, I post daily, items that, I enjoyed watching or I've collected DVDs of. And last week I did like some great TV things, the likes of, say, Magnum PI, Knight Rider, etc. Whereas our Wiedersehen Pet, you had one at the start and you had one at the end, but they were both different. You didn't have the same, like, say, Keeping Up Appearances or Never the Twain. You didn't have the same one at the start. You had 2 different ones. So you had Breaking Away, and then you had That's Living All Right, and then season 2 you had, oh Lord, why is my memory not working? Back with the Boys Again was one of them.
Let's see if you can do this.
Comes to something whenever your mind just freezes on you.
Back with the Boys Again was definitely one of them. I'm just trying to see if I can find it myself, but it doesn't say.
7 Again, I think
that's it. Yeah.
So that's the CD then, which I've had for many a year now. 1996 that was first brought out. Wow. But yeah, it's just one of those things that you can't help. It's one of those things that it's an iconic theme tune. If you're watching it on Netflix or BritBox and the thing comes up to say skip intro, and you don't skip it. Like the US Office, if I watch, I can never ever skip the intro because it's like blasphemy. And it's the same with these 2. You can't fast forward. You can fast forward, but you don't want to.
But you're missing
out. It's the same with season 3. I really enjoyed the music of that. It was very. I really wish they'd brought out the later seasons on vinyl as well. Sadly, they haven't. I don't know why, but I picked that up. I was in like a local record shop and picked that up for like £6, and the other one I got for about a £5 posted, and they're just great to put on to and just listen to as well. And it's just something that, even though some of the music, like Moxie, Melody for Dennis, Dagmar's Farewell, Bombers Away, Mr. Jazz Meets Odd, The Radish Meets McGowan, like you've got bits there that whenever you read of, exactly where that happens in the show. And yeah, I mean, Joe Fagan, I'd never heard of, and I don't think I've heard of him doing anything else bar Auf Wiedersehen Pet. I'm probably wrong, but that's to me what he'll be best known for is his work on
I'll tell
this,
you what.
and it's just
Every
on.
time
Sorry.
I set a Spotify playlist up, I make sure that those songs are in there. I don't know why, they just have to be in there. So if it's like my
Yeah,
own mix and I'm in the car and I'm doing it myself, it will be
yeah.
those songs are being played all the time.
Hmm.
The wife hates it, but you know that's the way it's going to be. Now, Chris, we need to start wrapping up this edition of the Retro Chat. Summarize for me very quickly where does Auf Wiedersehen Pet stand in the test of time? We've heard that it's
Oh,
ITV's top show. We heard that it's number 46 from the BFI. Where does it stand? What's its legacy?
the legacy is that your father passed this on to you, and at some stage you may pass this on to your daughter, or like somebody else. I work with a lot of younger people, so I'm not saying I'm really old, but regardless, but this is something you can say, have you seen this? Like it's like an old movie. It stands the test of time. Sure enough, like we say, some of the behaviors are kind of a little bit outdated, but that's kind of the charm of
It's
it.
where we
Like,
are.
yeah, exactly. We're in a different place now as we were then, especially with the likes of the economy and things like that. But it's just something that it's timeless. You can put this on at any stage, and it'll either give you a good memory if you've grown up with it, or it'll, like with Andy, it'll put a smile on your face like he's doing now, because he's probably thinking about some
Yeah.
memories. And that's the thing, is that it has that power of doing that, which a lot of things do. But because sometimes you'll have a character in there where you can identify as, whether you're the Neville, you want to get your head down and work, but you have to do it for the wife, back home, or whether you're the light like Oz, and God help you if you are, but fair play to you. Um, but but whether you're just off on just to get some money, just to have, because you just thought it was a good idea and you want to escape the wife, then again, God help you. Or if you're just going through a troublesome time, where Dennis, and you just don't know where your head's at, or if you're permanently sick like Moxie. I don't think there's many wrestlers in the world, like can go like like a bomber, but there we go.
Well,
And yeah, it's just one of those things that's timeless, and it's just one of those things that easily is in my top 5 TV shows of all time. It has to be.
and also one of the things that's got to be grateful for, or not grateful for, depending on how you look at it, it introduced us to Jimmy Nail's singing voice.
But to be fair, would you prefer that voice, or would you prefer Dennis Waterman?
It introduced us to Jimmy Nail's singing voice.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah, but don't forget,
Oh,
like Elvis Presley had blue suede shoes, and Jimmy Neal had crocodile shoes.
Jimmy, I'm a big fan of Jimmy Nail as a singer.
As a joke for Christmas, I actually found crocodile shoes for £1 in Poundland, and I gave it to somebody. So,
Love it.
Yeah. Because I remember my dad was looking for that and Spender on DVD.
They never released it. They
Because
never released Crocodile Shoes on DVD, as far as I know.
weird.
I
Again,
don't think they
BBC
did anyway.
mustn't like making money, so they mustn't.
I know. Chris, it's always an absolute pleasure having you on Retro Chat, especially when we're talking about something that is so personal to us, such as Auf Wiedersehen Pet. And we could talk about it for hours. And I think at some point, what we need to do is get together and get an episode, get the pilot episode of season 1, or one of the episodes, to sit down and actually do a watch along and talk about it as we go. So I think that would be a fascinating thing to do if you're up for
that'll
that.
be that. Yeah, that'll be something interesting to do for sure. Yeah, I haven't done many watch-alongs. So yes, thank you as always for inviting me on. I apologize, it's taken a bit longer than expected to do this, but my car broke down, and that's what delayed us.
And you had to get the boat.
It didn't really, but I was just making a Weidersehen picture.
Yeah, I know. And you're going to be seeing a lot more of Chris on Retro Chat. Chris is we've been talking about some projects that Chris might be doing for us, so we're going to be talking about that. You're also coming back on in a few weeks' time. We're going to be talking about the Turtles, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and we got some stuff over Christmas.
Yeah. He sent me a list of stuff he wants to do for Christmas, and then one of the things was like, "Why do you want to do that? And why do you want to do that?" And now he was just like, just told me, "But no, that's the next night. I don't want to do them." I was like, he just must have hated himself so much. But
I did. Yeah,
yes,
we
yeah.
were
So
going to be doing something that is actually so bad it made me panic and had a panic attack. So I took it out of the list because it's just no.
yes, I do have quite a lot of stuff to show for turtles, so I'm gonna have to do my backdrop again.
A whole new set.
I always
You
like
need a
to,
whole new set.
yeah, I always like to do that, and I do have quite a lot of the DVDs because we're probably going to chronicle from the early shows to the Nickelodeon shows as well. So
This might
yeah,
need to be a two-parter depending on how long we go, but
yeah, either that
we'll
or
sort
we'll start at 12 o'clock and end at like 4 o'clock or whatever. Be like a
do it on
long
the day
show
off.
ever. Yeah, but
Chris,
yeah,
always been a
exactly.
pleasure. Always been a pleasure, my friend. Stay with me for just a second. That's it for this edition of Retro Chat Podcast. As always, going hashtag back in time to the golden eras, the great days of TV, movie, cartoons, and anything else you can think of. Stay tuned to the YouTube channel at Retro Chat Podcast UK, and stay tuned to us on social media for all of the latest and everything that's coming. We talked about Christmas. We got some big content coming over the Christmas period in December. We got content coming through November. We got content coming through October. Anything you can think of is coming to the Retro Chat, and let us know what you would like us to talk about right here on the show by social media. But until next time, for Chris and for myself, well, hey, man.
Oh,
See
damn it!
We'll be back. Take care. See you soon.